And we should be live. Hey everyone, welcome to this stream. I'm going to be checking if everything's working, so you can skip like 2 minutes ahead. I'm just going to be making sure that my audio and everything's working fine. So every stream is probably going to begin because I like to double check everything. But then once I'm done that, we will jump into some drawings. You can see how we're drawing these cute little characters here. And also I'll keep looking this way because I have my stream set up over there, so that's the only place I can see how things are looking on camera here. But let me load up the live stream and see if we are actually live or if I'm just talking to myself. It looks like we are live. Here we go. Let me see. Yep, it looks like we are going. We are good to go. All right, here we go. Scoot, little scoot here. How are you guys doing? Feel free to draw along if you are interested in watching people draw. It probably means that either you just like the relaxation of watching people make stuff, or maybe you like drawing yourself, and I'd highly recommend you explore that. I have tutorials and stuff linked below if you're a beginner artist. I have tons of that stuff that you can check out, a bunch of free lessons on how to get into drawing. But yeah, that's if you are interested, you go check that out. So here we are. I'm using these watercolor pieces of paper instead of just my sketchbook, because I'm trying to do slightly more finished work here, like slightly more finished drawing. So I have like this template here that I'm using to draw out like the box that I want the drawing to exist within. So I have this little template here, drawing along the lines here, and then now we have our little space that we can draw our little cute characters. So I will first go in with pencil to like figure out what is it that we like, a little blobby character. Let's suppose we want legs here, kind of like leaning to one side. It's cute. Maybe just like hand on the head, kind of like thinking. And where should we put the eyes? Either high or no? Let's put them low here. Kind of like sad looking. It's kind of hard to see. It's very light right now because it's just guidelines, right? So I'm just like planning it out, and then once I have the plan, I'll start inking on top. Now I know there are some artists who are just able to like go straight in with a pen. I am not one of those. I like having a little bit of a plan first before I go in and draw the details. So now I'm gonna draw the eyes here. Kind of a little sad character. These are super fun to draw. So I'm drawing the character shape first, and then I will be adding like the flowers and stuff on top of it. There we go. Couple of flowers on the side here. So this is kind of like a fun way to combine character design with drawing natural elements like flowers and plants and stuff. I really like drawing these. These are really fun to do, especially because they're quite relaxing. You don't really have to think too much about anatomy. They can just be little goofy characters. This is something I talked about on the last stream, or the stream before that, where because you're working on a 2D surface, you really don't have to worry about things technically working. Like I don't have to think about the fact that this character needs to like exist within reality. It could just be a little fun little character, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be more than that. Now obviously if you're someone who's interested in realism, drawing realistic drawings, then that's not true for you, right? Like then you're trying to replicate some of reality at least. Like it has to make some more sense. But if you're into like fantasy and like doodling, just having fun with it, then you really don't have to think much about it. Just like enjoy it, have fun with it. And here we go. Want to draw some mushrooms and stuff on here. I also find this quite relaxing, right? Because it's stress free and fun. It's actually something that I teach beginners very early on. That like, just learn how to put a face on a shape, and then the shape suddenly comes to life in a way that's like different and interesting. Just like us human beings, we like faces, we like characters, which makes sense. It's like a natural inclination there. It's a long weekend where I'm at, so plenty of people outside enjoying the weekend. It's really nice. It's been quite hot, but nice anyways, you know. I prefer slightly colder weather. I like weather where I can wear a hoodie, you know. For me, it's like, I think 13 to 17 degrees Celsius is like the perfect weather, in my opinion. Which is funny because biologically I come from a tropical place. But I actually like it cool. Like cold, a bit of cold. Here I'm just like filling a little bit of grass at the bottom. Also trying to decide like what flowers to draw. One of the challenges with these characters is like you don't want it to be too overwhelming in terms of the amount of plants you put on it. So I'm like trying to be deliberate with where I'm placing them. I feel like I talked about this in the last stream as well, but one thing that's been on my mind a lot is just like friendship, building friends. Especially someone who's like slightly older. And I have a lot of friends who are also dealing with that challenge of like how do you build friendships and maintain friendships while also trying to survive because cost of living keeps going up. It's quite challenging. It is also the idea of like third spaces not existing anymore, that like my generation doesn't really have a space where you meet people. Like people in the past used to have like churches and stuff that people would regularly go to, but that's not as common for my generation. That's why like art communities and communities online are becoming so popular, right? Because it's a way to connect with people and try to develop friendships that way. I actually have quite a few friends that I lean on regularly that I met online. But even that's kind of difficult, you know? The upside of meeting people online is that you can meet people of specific interests, but it's also very hard to develop a deep connection online. Like you almost have to meet in person. Unless you spend many hours over a voice chat. Which I have friendships like that. I have friends that I consider very, very close to me that I've never actually met in person yet. But that is also like the circumstances that we met through the pandemic where everyone was online all the time. And that made it easier to like create those bonds. But I think it's much harder to do that now. It is also the question of like how do you build a community around yourself? Like how do you surround yourself with people that you care about? That's where hobbies come in. Hello! Zeradine Corby. That is a cool name. I'm definitely pronouncing it wrong. But welcome. Hopefully my mispronunciation isn't too offensive. What are you up to today? Yeah, I'm just rambling on about making friends, building community around yourself, especially someone who's like slightly older. Because I do think like when you're in school and stuff, that kind of happens naturally. It's like way easier because you're stuck in the same place with a bunch of people. So meeting people is kind of easy. But then as you get older, people tend to like become busier. There's less time to make friends. You don't spend as much time in spaces where it makes sense to become friends, right? Like most people don't want to be close friends with their coworkers because it's like that's not the setting for friendship to really grow. I also wonder if like technology will help solve this eventually. Maybe it's just got the transition period where we're getting used to the fact that everyone's online. Because the upside is that it's way easier to organize stuff because you're online, right? Like I can just message a bunch of my friends and be like, here on this day, keep this day free, and then we'll do this dinner or whatever. That's one upside. But the problem with that as well is that because planning can happen so rapidly, people always have a lot of options. So sometimes people become more flaky because it's like, well, I can just wait till the last minute to make plans. They present a different challenge. Part of me does wonder if it's regional. Like I wonder if like areas, like cities where it's really expensive to live, maybe it's harder to build community because it also means that like the businesses around you. Oh, I don't know my. I don't know if you heard that on the mic, but that song is my rice cooker finishing. It's so funny because it's like this, like nicer Japanese rice cooker. Yet it has like this really funny song that it plays every single time. Like when you start it and when it finishes, it plays a little song, a little jingle, which is like very Japanese, I guess. Like kind of like having fun with it. It's so funny. It's like the last thing I was expecting because it was like it is a slightly more expensive thing. So, oh sorry, it's like drawing off camera. My bad. There we go. That's a better position. There we go. As I was saying, it's like a slightly more expensive rice cooker, and I wasn't expecting it. So it's just so funny. You having dinner? Yeah, I'll be having dinner after this, after I'm done streaming. So I have like a lot of food that I already cooked yesterday. So, but I ran out of rice. So I was just left the rice cooker to run while I do this, so that it'll be ready when I finish this. But no, I'm not gonna eat while I'm on stream. Don't worry. That would be kind of weird. I'd be so self-conscious if people were watching me eat. Like having that on video would be kind of strange. I guess like people do that, right? People do stream themselves like eating and hanging out and just talking, but I don't know. There's something intimate about eating. Having someone watch you eat. But yeah, I'll be eating after this. Which is a little bit late, like it is like 9:20 right now, so I'm definitely eating later in the day. But it's because I was working all day and had other things that were a little bit higher priority, so also I wanted to make sure I actually got on here and talk to you guys, connect a little bit, get a little drawing done. I'm gonna call you Corby. Yeah, like ASMR stuff. Have you eaten yet? Is it? Are you in the same time zone as me? I'm 9:20 right now, 9:20 p.m. So it's definitely late. But I also like there are definitely days where I eat later in the day. Like one of my main hobbies is dancing. So when I see my dance friends after dance class, like we'll take a dance class and then go out for dinner after, and usually that ends up being very very late. Sometimes classes end around 9. And then it takes about like half an hour to get out of the studio because everyone like sits around and talks way too long. That's when you have like push people out of the studio like, okay, let's go. Let's not hang out here forever. which is a good sign, right? If everyone was rushing out immediately, that'd probably be a worse sign. But I do find that kind of funny. It's like, how many conversations have you had in someone's car while they're parked outside your house? Like, I've had many hour long conversations as we're like want to keep going, but also have to like go home. It's 3 a.m. now. Wow, 3 a.m. Are you a bit of a night owl? Is today kind of like a special day? Just couldn't sleep. I have definitely stayed up to those. Sometimes it's nice to be up really late. I like being up late, but the problem is that like I'm happy. I'll get more work done if I wake up early. But there's something nice about staying up late. There's like a specific energy that you have. I also like feeling tired at the end of the day. Obviously, feeling tired during the day is kind of a bummer, but at nighttime when you're kind of like relaxed and tired, that's like a very nice feeling. I love that feeling. That's like when everything suddenly turns funny because you're like not thinking as much. You have sleep problems. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's rough. Yeah, I don't have the healthiest sleep patterns myself, but yeah, there's something nice about being up late. I also think that like for people who have sleep problems, I do think the internet is kind of a blessing, you know, because it's like, well, at least you have some sort of entertainment that's available to you. I feel like it'd be so rough to have sleep problems like back in the day where entertainment was harder to find. Like imagine just like laying there and not being able to sleep. That's like, oof, that's rough. Hmm. Although sometimes the internet is the reason why I have sleep problems sometimes because I'm like on my screens way too long. There are definitely days where I like have to leave my phone outside of the bedroom because I'm like, oh no, if I bring this into the bedroom, I will stay up literally like the whole night. Well, I hope you find a solution to your sleeping problems eventually. You get addicted, yeah. You get addicted to the phones. Oh my god, that's why TikTok is wild. Like I don't have TikTok anymore, and I had to uninstall it. I even uninstalled Instagram recently off my phone because I'm like, I can't do this. Like this is not good for me, and it's not. The worst part is like you don't really enjoy it. Like I don't mind watching a bunch of YouTube videos because that I actually enjoy. Like I actually feel good watching YouTube videos and streams and stuff like that. But short form content is just like draining. Like it's just too much. It's like way too much. Yeah, you too. Cause like if I watch like a long YouTube video, I feel like connected to the person that makes this stuff. You know, especially if it's good storytelling. Like you have like good feelings about it. But the short form content is fun at first, but after like 10 minutes, you're like, wait, I've experienced so many different things in such a short period of time. It's like overwhelming. So it's like fun for a little bit, but if you consume too much of it, it's just like, oh, oof, does not feel good. So we have this cute little character. I think I'm maybe a little bit done with this here. That The thing with these characters, they're cuter if I leave them a little bit simple. So I'm trying not to like overdo it. But yeah, it's easy to go overboard. So I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then we'll start another one. It gets boring, yeah. I also like rarely feel connected to the creators that do short form content. Like it's harder to connect. But if you watch something long form, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm making a human connection here that like feels good. I feel like I understand the world a little bit better. Like there's nothing wrong with short form content necessarily at its core, but it just gets draining. It's great for like when you're like waiting for a friend or something. You just pull it up, consume a couple of short videos. In that context, it makes a lot of sense, and that I don't mind. But yeah, if you do an hour short form content, I feel like your brain just like becomes mush. Character here, kind of like wide at the top here. Just give it long arms like on the side. So I'm just drawing this out with pencil a bit here, and then going on with the details. Like to make an effort to connect with us, you know? Yeah, exactly. It's also like I kind of like, for people to watch longer form content, you kind of have to connect somehow. Like you have to say things, there's enough time to like really develop an interest in someone. And I feel like that's just part of the medium. But short form, like, you know, you just don't have time. Like, how are you supposed to like breathe and let things connect when you have 30 seconds to make an impression and capture people's attention? It's the same thing with like making friends, right? It's like I have friends who I adore, but they're so busy that it's hard to like connect deeply with them, because it's like, well, if we hang out, I know the hangout has to be short so that they can go back to work or do other things that they have to do. And that just like kind of limits things, you know? I think video content is the exact same way. Like I can listen to a podcast or a stream and then do other things and not feel drained by it. Usually gives me energy, especially if it's funny content, things that I enjoy. So I'm just planning that a little bit here. The challenge with these characters is deciding like where to put the plants and make it feel right. I don't have a lot of friends right now because, as you said, all of them are busy. Yeah, exactly. That's like very, very normal, you know? And it's like not personal, right? It's just like people have lives, and especially if you live in a city where like everything's expensive, it's like people end up like working so much that they almost like don't have room to even think about friendships. There's definitely a period of my life where I like almost had barely saw friends. And then lately I've been like making a very active effort to like hang out with people and be like, okay, we're both busy, we're both stressed about money as always, but let's also find a way to like spend time and actually connect. Because I am scared of ending up in a place where like I have good finances but then like no one to enjoy it with, you know? Especially if you come from like a success obsessed culture where like you are defined by the money that you make. A lot of immigrant cultures are that way, where it's like, oh, you're not a doctor, engineer, you're not valuable, like, which is an absurd thing to think. I think that kind of thinking and isolates people because it's like, okay, well, that means I have to like prove my worth in some way. And this doesn't leave anyone feeling better, you know? Yeah. Are you like a student? Or do you work full time? Just vibing out, fun employed? Because even students have a hard time like hanging out because it's like if you're studying so much and you have like all the extracurricular activities and stuff like that, it's like that can also become overwhelming. Always used to want me to achieve her dream. Yeah, that's rough. That's a lot of pressure. And it's obviously not malicious, right? Like your mom probably believes that that would make you happy as well, right? But that's rough. That's way too much pressure. You're really young. Oh, well, at least then, like your sleep problems might just be that you're young and energetic, you know. The problem with like expectations is that sometimes it like disconnects people, you know. Like even if people want the best for you, it's like, yeah, but if you're defining me by my achievements, then it's like, how am I supposed to make a real connection? That is why like having hobbies where people like really don't expect anything of you are so great, you know. That's why the arts are great. Most people who have like an artistic hobby, they do it for fun, so there's like no expectation that you're supposed to like give other people something in return for it. From stress, I think. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, but also being stressed is kind of life, isn't it? At least that's the way I try to think about it, because like I stress a lot too, but in my head I'm like, yeah, but isn't that kind of what everyone feels? Like I don't have any friends who would say that they're living stress free. And I have friends who are way smarter than me, so I'm like, okay, well, if you, who is smarter and better put together, is stressed, then I'm pretty sure I can't really expect myself not to be stressed as well, you know? It's also helpful to like not punish yourself for being stressed. Because it's one thing to be stressed, and it's another thing to like then also feel bad about being stressed. Like, oh my god, I should like, if you make like a value judgment on yourself that like, oh my god, I shouldn't be stressed because that makes me a bad person. It means that like I'm not achieving the things. Like that's not helpful either, right? Like that's just, it's like a double whammy. It literally doesn't make anything better. And the reason why I'm laughing at it is because like I've definitely been that person where I like, punish myself for being stressed or like, oh, if I made better decisions I wouldn't be stressed about this or that. And it's like, yeah, but that added self-judgment isn't helpful. And ultimately it only makes it harder to like do the thing that you actually need to do, right? Like if you feel bad about not going to the gym, for example, because that's like the easiest example everyone understands. Being mean to yourself that you haven't gone to the gym doesn't actually like make you go to the gym, you know. It's better to be forgiving and then be like, okay, well, new chapter, let me just try this and make this happen. Like spending your energy actually changing the thing is better than punishing yourself. Which is kind of the opposite of how a lot of school systems work. You know, it's like so punishment based rather than like, hey, let's fix this thing. It makes them worse, and I'm in that state right now. Yeah. Do you like the guilt of like, oh, I don't have this thing together? Is that what you're talking about? Like when you say them, it makes them worse. I'm in this right now. Like, you mean those feelings? Like, exacerbates the challenging feelings? It is also, like, maybe helpful to realize that a lot of the good traits in people come from challenges. And this is obviously, like, easier said than done, but it's easier said than done. But if you can appreciate that, like, being challenged and being stressed can actually, like, create growth in you, if you can have that, like, insight, that's helpful. But that is, like, very hard to implement in the moments when you're feeling challenged, you know? Like, for example, maybe you're too young to relate to this, but if you're, like, stressed about money, for example, if you can have the insight that being stressed about money will make you learn more things and make you more productive in ways that might surprise you, having that insight can make it helpful, but also it's very hard to see it that way when you're stressed about it. I do feel very grateful that I'm in a generation that has access to the type of education around emotions that I don't think older generations had. Like, being able to watch videos of psychiatrists explain things and reading about feelings in a way that older generations just didn't have the access to. I think that's one of my favorite things about the internet and YouTube. Yeah, your parents relate to that, I think. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of guilt that people feel, and that makes sense. Like, but it's also just, like, not that helpful. Yet again, it's the type of thing that, like, even if you logically understand that it'd be better if you didn't feel guilty, it's very hard to implement it. Because I say these things right now because I'm, like, having fun drawing and hanging out, you know. It's very easy for me to just spout off these things, but in moments of stress, it's a little bit harder. It is also funny how often people actually know the answers to these types of problems, but it's just implementation. Like, I don't think more intellect is that helpful outside of, like, making money. Like, when it comes to, like, your life and being happy, I don't think being intellectually smart is actually that useful. Because some of my wisest friends are not the ones with the strongest brains, if you will, or the most education. It's usually the friends who are a little bit more humble, and they have, like, wisdom in their bodies in a way. Like, they embody the wisdom rather than just being able to talk about it. Like, I have friends who, when I ask them questions about, like, how are you this way, they have, like, no answers because it's not, like, a logical conclusion they came to. It's just, like, they understand in their bodies how to deal with feelings. Like, I was talking to my friends about compliments and how hard it is to, like, fully absorb compliments, right? Like, someone might say a nice thing to you and you kind of brush it off like, oh, they're just being nice or whatever. Like, I think that's very common. And one of my friends, she said that when people give her compliments, she assumes that there are more compliments behind the compliment. So she had the realization that anytime she's given a compliment to someone, right, she's usually holding back on more compliments that she could give. She doesn't, because in a conversation, you don't want to spend, 20 minutes just telling a person how great they are, right? Because that's kind of awkward. So anytime she receives a compliment, she thinks to herself, oh, there's probably more compliments behind the compliment that I just received. And I think that was mind blowing to me, because that's a way of looking at compliments that I've never even considered. I was like, what? Like, it makes so much sense, yet it's not intuitive to me. And it made me see the world a little bit differently, because, like, oh, this is how you live through, this is how you move through the world. You're able to develop your confidence, because not only do you take the compliments you get, but you're gracious with yourself. Now, obviously, that could, like, snowball into narcissism, but she's not that type, so that's not a problem for her. But yeah, it's really really interesting. You're wise as well, my. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. Uh, I like talking about these topics, but I think a big part of why I like talking about these things is because I struggle with them. You know, it is a little bit more interesting to talk about things that you actually struggle with. Like one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of my friends who read a lot about mental health, for example, are all the same friends who also struggle with it, right? Like it's not the people who do the research are usually the ones that are struggling with it, which I think is funny. It's kind of the same way that like the reason why I teach drawing is because like I wish I had better resources when I started. Like simpler resources actually is like more important, I think. Because I had resources, but some of them were just like too complicated. I was like, this is not where I want to start off on. So now I have a lot of beginner tutorials because of that reason. I'm like, okay, teach people to have fun. Just don't make it so much about drawing the most realistic face. Let's just have some fun. Yeah, it does make sense, right? The compliments thing, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Yeah, it's such a cool way of seeing the world. Such a different way of seeing the world, too. I think it's ironic. Yeah. It's the same way they say that like authors write the books that they themselves needed, you know, which makes sense. It's like that is there's a lot of wisdom in that. You kind of like teach the thing that you yourself need for yourself, which is a good use of resources, right? If you're interested in the things that would actually help you. But the same way, like the people who are really into like living a healthy lifestyle, a lot of them had health scares at a younger age, you know? Because then you appreciate what it means to be healthy in a different way than someone who's like never had that scare. So here we go, one more character down. Kind of a happy looking character. I'm trying to think of like what else I could put in the background here. Maybe just like a bush. And that's also why like I'm thinking so much about friendship now, is because like it is something I've struggled with. Specifically because it's just like a time constraint. It's like if you work a lot, like how do you make time for it? I also have a lot of friends who their only close friends are friends they made when they were young. And it's like, oh, but you change as a person, so you like kind of need to make new friends continuously. It's not like you can just make all your friends when you're young and then assume that all of them will stick around. Which maybe that was the case when like people lived in smaller villages and stuff. You had your friends and they kind of stayed. But in the modern world where a lot of people have to like move around and get career opportunities further away, it's like you can't really bank on everyone sticking around. It just becomes like a logistical problem. Like one thing that's happened to me recently is one of my closest friends, he moved back closer to where I live because he used to live like 45 minutes away. And that's like made it so that we see each other way more often. And that's just like a logistical thing. It's not a... Trees, should you draw trees? Yeah, I could draw a little tree. Yeah, I struggle with it too. Yeah, I think it's something that everyone struggles with. I don't think... I've yet to talk to someone who doesn't struggle with it to some degree. Although I have one friend where she claims to have too many friends, and I think that's so funny because she's never needed to actively think about friendship, but because she's someone that is likable and easy to talk to, she's in a situation where she's trying to reduce the amount of friends she has because it's like too much of an effort, which is absurd to me. But it might also be that she's a little bit more introverted than I am. Because so much of my job involves being like working on my own, because this is basically like the only part of my job where I actually get to connect deeply with people, like the one-on-one, like directly. Obviously, like the videos are helpful in terms of connecting with people, but it's a little bit different. Like as you said, you feel yourself change. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like sometimes certain friends make sense at certain chapters of your life, and then you change, and then you're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense anymore. Which has definitely happened a bunch for me as well. Which is good. Like, it's obviously kind of painful in the moment, but I do think it's the right thing to be happening. Like, it means that you're growing and changing. Here we go, one more down. I'll erase away the pencil marks once the ink is pure, like perfectly dried, you know? Let me get some more paper here. I do think that people over the next couple of years will probably think a lot more about community and stuff like that. Like I do think these topics will become more popular over time when people realize how important they are to like actually feel happy. But the solutions, I don't know what the solutions are to these problems, because so many of the spaces that you can actually exist within physically are like businesses now. If you live in a city, at least. Like if you live further out, maybe it's a little bit easier to like just hang out. Do you want to know a fun fact? Of course. Always down for a fun fact. Unless you're being sarcastic. Is it actually a fun fact, or are you calling it a fun fact when it's going to be not a fun fact? Kidding. Yeah, I'm down. It's just like the economic reality. I think that's a big challenge here, because it's like I have so many friends that they like live in small spaces that you can't even like hang out really, you know, or like living with family because it's just too expensive to live on your own. And that also makes it hard to like host and have people over. Also makes it hard to have hobbies if you're like so focused on paying for your existence. And then I think that's like one of the main issues. Part of it is also that it's like almost a pain in the ass to like organize people, you know. I'm becoming that person in some of my groups where I'm the one hosting and organizing and stuff, and it is sometimes like annoying and tiring to be like messaging people like, hey, are you coming to this thing that we're doing? Can you give me a straight answer? And that's where like I think having hobbies is ultimately the best place to like meet new people and build a community of people around you. Because like shared activities makes it easier to hang out. You know, thanks. As you said, in the future, people will start thinking about happiness more because like the world will change to the worst. Yeah, you feel like things are like heading in maybe slightly the wrong direction. Is that this kind of how you feel about it? I know. I think people are going to realize how much of their happiness is related to the people in their lives rather than like the material gains they can have. At least I hope people have that realization. But it is also hard to sacrifice like financial success to then have people, which is a weird thing to say out loud, but I do think that that's something a lot of people struggle with. It's a struggle I sense in myself as well, where like when I'm spending time organizing things and like getting people together, in my head I'm gonna be like, yeah, but I could spend this time making sure that I'm financially safe, you know? Let's make it a little blobby shape like that. This shape is a little bit too square, so give it a little bit of a bump there. Yeah, a lot of bad things are. Yeah. I can see why you'd feel that way. I think I feel differently depending on the day. Yeah, I fully get where you're coming from. Part of me also like just chooses to be optimistic that like human ingenuity will prevail in some ways. Obviously not like there are horrible things that are always happening in the world. There are challenges that are just, scary if you think about them. But also, I think you like almost have to choose how you want to feel about it because you can make arguments either way. Like to me, a hot shower is like such an invention. It's an invention that most of humanity didn't have, right? And that's like a small example, right? Like your life isn't. You might not necessarily feel way happier just because you have hot showers, but it's a luxury that I feel grateful for. So I'm like, okay, I shouldn't take this for granted. Having this access is great. Read about it and it's complicated. I'm scared about it. Yeah, and it's totally fine to be scared about it. I don't think there's like, yet again, like if you feel scared about it, just accept that you feel scared about it. And I think that's a natural response to like scary things. You know, you don't need to beat yourself up for wanting to feel optimistic, but I think you can feel scared and feel like the world is maybe heading in the wrong direction while also trying to do your best to be a positive light, you know? Like you can be pessimistic about the world as a whole while still being optimistic about your impact on the people around you. And I think that's like the thing that matters the most. I have friends who are both optimistic and pessimistic, and my pessimistic friends, even though they have a view of the world that's maybe a little bit cynical and a little bit scared, they still treat me well, right? Like they're still great friends. They still go out of their way to like make people happy. And to me, that's the only thing that really matters, you know? Like, do you trust people? Are you willing to sacrifice on behalf of others? Like those things are the things that really matter. And being scared once in a while, it's like maybe that's healthy, maybe that's good. Maybe that's the reality. Like maybe that's more honest to what's actually happening, but how are you going to behave in the face of it? Because the thing that I've noticed in myself is the more pessimistic I am, the less likely I am to like do things that I actually value. Like for example, if you're pessimistic about people aren't appreciative of you planning stuff, for example, just as an example, then you're not going to start planning stuff. You're not going to put in the effort to like make friends and stuff. And then it's like, okay, is that the result you really want, or is it that, are you just like scared to like feel the negative feelings that might come with that? The sacrifice that comes with that. You do. Yeah. But yet again, like you shouldn't try not to feel bad about feeling bad. Just let it exist. I totally understand. I also don't. I actively avoid consuming too much like news media because I'm just like I can't do it. I'm too sensitive. If I see horrible things, that they stay with me, so I'm just like not going to. I'm not going to engage with it because I don't have the capacity to do it. I'm going to draw it on the tiny tree because of your suggestion. Maybe like a. And even if you feel like the entirety of the world is heading for a negative place, you can still be very optimistic about your small corner of the world, you know? That's why I try to think about it. I'm like, all my friends, they're all people who are actively trying to be better people. They're improving themselves. Many of them are actively seeing therapists and trying to fix their mental health so that they can be a positive force in the world or like be better parents whenever they become parents. Because where I live, there's like a lot of immigrants, myself included. So a lot of my friends come from like complicated backgrounds where there's a lot of like trauma and challenges. And so they're like, okay, I don't want to pass this on, so I'm going to try to fix this. And I think that's like a heroic thing that people can do. So it's like, oh yes, you might be pessimistic about where the world is headed, but you're still gonna do the scary thing in the face of it, so that you know. Wait, parents? Well, I do have friends who are parents. Like I have friends who are older. I have friends who are like 40, 50 years old. But the friends that I'm speaking of specifically, they're a little bit more. They're planning to become parents, so they're like working on themselves to then be ready for it, well, or as ready as they can be for it. But yeah, I have quite a wide range of friends, and it's a lot of them I met online. So, but the friends that are like closer to my age, they because they know they want to become parents, and then their entire like life strategy is kind of based around building a family. They're like really working hard to like make sure, hey, I don't want to be out of control. I don't want to have anger issues while I have a child. Like that's something I hear quite a bit. And that's also like selection bias, obviously. Like the types of people who like being friends with me tend to be the types of people who like to have those kinds of conversations. Yeah. That's why too, like even if you think the world is like not heading in a good direction, you could be wrong, right? Like is there like at least like a 5% chance that you could be wrong? And if there's a 5% chance, why not bet on it, you know? Because I feel like quite cynical sometimes about friendship, you know, because even though I love my friends, sometimes I'm like, oh, but would they actually care? Like, if how many of them would show up for me if like things went south, or you know, like you have those thoughts sometimes, and then I think like even if there's a high probability that maybe people don't care as much as I want them to, I'm just gonna bet on the fact that I'm gonna bet on the good side of it, you know, the optimistic side, because it seems just like a better strategy and also more fun strategy, right? Yeah, maybe. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But it feels like a more fun game to play, to like try to bring more light into the world. Yeah. Well, even if you like happy side, I think trying to be happy is kind of challenging, like trying to live on the happy side. I think it's more like the optimistic side that like things could be better. You might not be happy about it, you know? Because happiness is such a like fleeting feeling. Like it's not a feeling that really sticks around very long, usually. At least in my experience. Especially if you're someone who like is connected to the world, you know, like about the news that's happening. It's very hard to like be happy all the time. But like choosing to like see that it possibly could be better, I think that's something you can hold on to, I think. It's like what we're talking about, like you're saying that you're probably like up late as well because you're stressed about stuff. And it's like, yeah, the stress is so natural. Like being someone who's happy all the time, that's very unnatural and very unlikely. Like I've yet to meet someone who's that way. But I do have a lot of friends who are very optimistic all the time, you know, even in negative feelings, they're optimistic. And I think that's a more attainable goal, I think, than trying to be happy. I think it's much more about like trying to find something that's worth suffering for, you know. It's not I'm trying not to be stressed, it's I'm trying to be stressed about the right things. Like for me, I'm choosing to be stressed about the ideas of friendship because I'm like, well, I know that this is valuable, so stressing about how to do it properly and how to like connect with people, that's worth it. I feel like that's the right thing to be stressed about. You should live in the happy side. Not usually. It does not stick around at all. Like happiness hates me, but I act happy, I guess. I don't know if happiness hates you or if it's just like not. Maybe human beings aren't supposed to be that happy, right? It's just not. I think it's unnatural. I just don't think it's supposed. I don't think you're supposed to be happy at all. Like I don't think that's the purpose. I think the purpose is to be fulfilled and like live. Feel like you have meaning. And usually, if like the people who have meaning in their lives usually are stressed, right? Like, I think you only find meaning in hard things. I don't think you find meaning in easy things, right? Like if you talk to most people who have kids, they will say that having kids is the hardest thing they've ever done in their lives, while it's also the most meaningful. It's almost like it being hard is part of why it's meaningful, you know? I don't know if you can have something be meaningful and also easy. Like tying back to friendships, like how many of your deepest friendships come from people that come from like struggling together, you know? At least that's what I think. I could be wrong, as always. You are funny. Yeah, maybe. I also wonder if like happiness is a little bit shy, where like if you're trying to look at it directly, you rarely feel happy. Like if I wake up every morning and I think, oh, am I happy today? I feel like I will never wake up happy. But then like if I just go about my day and do the things that I want to do, then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I do feel happy. And it's because it's shy, it doesn't like it when you stare at it, but it'll be there when, you know, randomly pop up in the day. Yeah. You want to protect, right? Exactly. You have to work for them to stress themselves. Yeah. And I think that great gives you purpose, and I think purpose is maybe more important than happiness. Especially because I don't think happiness is sustainable. Like, I just don't understand what that would look like. I think too, like you don't have to be happy to be fun or to you don't have to be happy to be fun to be around either, right? There are many times where I'm stressed, but I'm still having tons of fun while I'm with my friends, for example. Or like while I'm drawing. I can be stressed about money while still like enjoying the process of drawing. Like the two aren't incompatible. Like you could do things that you love in a stressed way. Now obviously like you want to like let go of some of that stress, but also I think it's pretty natural. Man, life is hard, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it has to be hard to be meaningful. I think that's the punchline. I don't know if you'd want an easy life if you could choose it. Obviously when you're stressed and like you're really going through it, you want it to be easier. You don't like actively want to make it harder for no reason. But I don't know if people would choose easy if they could. Like you want to feel like your life's an adventure, right? You're an artist too, but a beginner one. Yeah. That's being a beginner artist is like some of the most fun because there's like no pressure, you know? Uh, like I was saying, like you want your life to feel like an adventure, and it's not really much of an adventure if it's all easy. Have you ever watched a movie where the main character has it easy? That wouldn't be like a fun story. Like I feel like, especially nowadays, like some of the most popular stories are like people really, really struggling, and that's interesting because that's it's a real adventure. It builds character. It changes who you are. It's also the type of thing that you might only realize in hindsight, right? Like if you look, maybe you're a little bit too young for this, but when you start to look back on your life, it's like the things that you wish were easier are some of the things that you cherish the most, you know? I've heard this a lot from people who are very successful, where they like almost romanticize being broke back in the day. They like talk about it like they kind of miss it. It's because they like gave them so much purpose and meaning because it was so hard. But obviously they wouldn't actively choose it for themselves. Like obviously everyone would want to be slightly easier, but in hindsight you realize like, oh yeah, that thing that was really hard is actually meaningful and it made my life better. It's the same way that like now I appreciate like the years I spent feeling a little bit lonely, because now I'm like, oh, it makes me a better friend, you know? Like I don't think I would put in the amount of effort that I do into connecting with people if I didn't know what it was like not to be connected to people. Mm-hmm. And it's nice that you're a beginner artist. That's great. I assume that's maybe how you found my channel. Having a craft like drawing is always nice to return to, especially as a hobbyist. Like, obviously I do this for a living, so it's a little bit different, but I do think there's something magical about doing something as a beginner. Like doing something just for the love of it. I do hope that that's something that becomes a lot more normal for our generations. Well, I guess you're way younger than me, so maybe not. Future generations is the way I should say it. I hope that like having hobbies becomes more and more normal. You understand that feeling? Yeah, you did. You saw my hand tutorial. Okay, yeah, awesome. And it saved my, oh, that's very, very sweet. Are you like into character design? Are you kind of like just like studying, playing around, learning things? Obviously you don't have to have solid answers to any of it, but just asking because I'm curious. The camera is still heating up quite a bit. Really, one of the downsides of using like a nicer camera to record this stuff. And is this focused enough? I think it should be focused enough. As I was saying, yeah, that is focused. One of the downsides of using like one of these big cameras for streaming is that it heats up quite a bit. So I can't go on much longer here. But I will definitely do more of these. I do like it quite a bit. This is really fun and really satisfying to like spend time with people. I want to thank you. I just admire artists like you. Thank you so much. That is very, very sweet. Just like, yeah. Just one thing to remember is that we're all the same. We're all the same humans, kind of, you know. Um, if you want to learn how to draw, it's definitely something you can do. I teach it in big part because like I didn't have a lot of natural talent, so I know that it's something that anyone could really learn. But thank you, that's very sweet. I will not brush off that compliment. Go study Russian. Oh, that's cool. You're studying Russian. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm also going to be hopping off here in a second, so it's great talking to you. Thank you for hanging out. I hope your sleep becomes better and that you keep drawing whenever you have the time. You know, I know being a student is quite challenging, but if you're studying Russian, that's amazing. Good luck. Have a good study session. Appreciate you hanging out. Almost done this drawing then when I finish this. And if anyone's watching this on VOD later, just a reminder that I do have a free references for drawing flowers. I added a hydrangea photos. Hydrangea? No, I added hydrangea photos that I just took. There's some beautiful photos there. If you are like learning how to draw flowers, you can go check it out. That's linked below in the description. Absolutely free. You just have to like make an account, and I think you just need an email to do that. Email and password. I believe that is correct. But there's no money involved. Is what I mean to say. Like you don't have to pay for it. So go check that out if you are someone who's like into drawing plants and stuff, or if you're just looking at pretty flowers. That's one way to do it. Also, if you're just hanging out, feel free to leave a comment so I know that you're watching. I do appreciate the people spending a lot of time with me. Feels nice. I had the realization like a couple of weeks ago that I like want to feel a bit more connected to the people who use my tutorials, or people who just like watching art videos, and this is like one of the best ways for me to do that. It was your pleasure. Thank you again. Thank you for spending the time. And if you are able to catch these live, then just pay attention. The thing is that I don't do them on a specific schedule, so I can't like tell you exactly when to show up, but if you just keep an eye out, you might catch me some days. So there we go. I think that's gonna be it for this stream. I'm going to go and eat at 10:12 p.m. which is so late, but such is life sometimes. Sometimes you eat late. This is what happens. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I really appreciate you. Love ya. This is super nice. I love doing this. I'm gonna do more of these. And as I said, just leave a comment if you are around, and yeah, feel free to let me know what you want to see more of. But it's likely going to be like flower drawings and stuff like that. That's really what I want to spend more time on. I'm definitely going to draw more of these characters. That's kind of like the direction for now. No, I don't know where things are going to go long term, but yeah, love you, appreciate you. See you guys around. Bye. And feel free to if you are someone who's into drawing and you like the resources that I make sure to send it to friends and stuff that might also be interested in it. Like if you know anyone who's into drawing and wants to learn how to draw, or someone who's never drawn before but you think they might enjoy it, feel free to send them my free tutorials and just see if they like it, because I obviously want more people to learn how to draw because it's something that I love. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So see you all around. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye. And now I'm going to awkwardly scoot over there and turn this off. So I'll see you guys around. Bye.